Well, it is time for us to have another Illustration Masterclass here for Adobe Live, and thank you for joining me. My name is Kyle Webster, and I am an illustrator as well as an evangelist with my good pals on the evangelism team here at Adobe. And today I want to talk about point of view. And what I mean by that is the camera angle. I'll throw that in quotes because we're not using cameras here. We are talking about illustration, but it's the same basic idea. What happens when you take a simple subject and you frame it differently by positioning your point of view, all right, above, below, to the side of, far away from, close up to your subject or subjects for your illustration? Well, of course, this is going to do a lot. It's going to change numerous things, including the storytelling aspect of your illustration. Okay, what kind of story you're trying to tell. And by that, I mean all kinds of things, such as mood, right? You can give varying levels of importance to the figures, for example, in an illustration, by pulling back and exposing more of the environment, making them appear smaller and less significant, or by zooming very close to them, by being above them and making them seem smaller or maybe weaker, below and having them appear larger and stronger, maybe more imposing, etc. Lots to think about, and oftentimes when we're getting started drawing, we're learning, we're beginners, we have trouble with this aspect of creating illustrations because we're still trying to come to grips with form, right, and the basics of design, of whatever it is we're trying to draw, the subject that we're trying to draw. So we're still trying to work out proportion, we're still trying to work out rules of perspective and anatomy and things like that. And we sometimes forget about the importance of a clear camera angle that is going to support what it is you're trying to convey in your artwork. All right, so that is what we are going to talk about today. And I thought it'd be simple and fun to start by just looking at some paintings and a few photographs that all tackle the same subject. And so what that subject is a person sitting on the beach. A person sitting on the beach. So why don't we take a look at that together and we'll go from there. Alrighty. We're going to start with this illustration by the great Howard Pyle, this painting by Howard Pyle. And before we talk about this in any more detail, I want to say hello to some folks who are joining us here on behance.net/live or be.net/live. That is where I am reading the comments and taking questions. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or elsewhere, be sure to head over to behance.net/live and you can join the conversation and get involved in this live stream. All right, what's up? I see Tim is here. And we got some other folks, Steven and Classic Design, Sabina and Danielle and Bliss, Golden Rose, I know who you are. Brian, Wisdom, well, I hope I can impart some, thank you. We see, who else is here? Lizette and Rosie and Cléostoire, nice to see you. Oh my goodness, Alan, what's up everybody? Lee, folks, thanks for joining me. Love to know where you're from. Zulkarnain, if you have a question, you may of course ask it, and I will try and answer it for you. Hey Megan. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining me. Also be great, sometimes if you could let us know where you're watching from. That'd be cool. Glenn Roy, for example, is saying he's watching from St. Croix. Very nice. Glad to have you. All right, here is this illustration from our good friend Howard Pyle. A very famous and excellent American illustrator, early part of the 20th century. And let's take a look at this. So we have a person sitting on the beach, as we mentioned earlier. What are we immediately getting from this illustration? My answer to you would be several things. One thing immediately that comes out to me is a sense of isolation. Solitary figure on the beach. We are pulled back, okay, pulling our camera back, so to speak. And I'm going to use the word camera a lot when talking about this stuff. And you know what I mean. I mean the viewer, the point of view of the viewer of the illustration camera. We're pulling it way back. And what we're getting from this is a sense of scope of everything, the size of the environment, the importance of the space around the figure. Okay, it's really enormous, isn't it? Let's take a look at this here. We have our figure here. I'm going to use a different color that really stands out. So here is our figure. Okay, I'm including that little bit there where he's got the clothing falling out in the back there, just resting on the sand. But let's see, how much space does that occupy the total composition? Well, very little. Okay, it's clearly the focal point because we have a high contrast area there of the figure against the ground, the sky here, right? Call that figure-ground relationship. But look, he's tiny, okay? He's tiny. And the environment around him is vast. And not only is it vast, but it is basically unchanging in its characteristics, in the way that it is described. So the sky is really just one big patch of color, and the beach is really just one big patch of color. And by keeping these areas pretty simple, it helps to enlarge them, right? Because if we were to include a bunch of details, like some clouds here, maybe like some mountains or something, maybe a little palm tree hanging in over here from the side or whatever, the moment you start to break up that space, it starts to make it feel smaller because you're dividing it up. And that's what you got. So anyway, here we have this figure. Notice how the horizon line, okay, which is just this sliver of water, is guiding us right towards our figure. Isn't that really fantastic the way that's done? And it's definitely not right in the center of our image. Right? We're going to drop it down a little bit. All right, so that's going to make some asymmetrical balance here. It makes it a little easier to understand. Sorry, it makes it a little more dynamic, pardon me. But I do want you to notice something here. This is really interesting. Just a little bit of surf washing up from the bottom left corner. Now, what is that communicating to us? Well, we know there's water back here, but now we know that there's water here in the extreme foreground. And so we can conclude from just that little hint right here that this could be a pretty small island, or at least we know it's an island because this is jutting out into the water, and then right here we got water surrounding him on all sides, okay? So we could start figuring out how to tell this story. This could be a person, look at how he's hanging his head. Okay, so that's a nice emotional component that we can pull from that. And looks like he's feeling pretty sad and pretty sorry and maybe pretty hopeless even. Maybe he's been shipwrecked. Maybe he's a lone survivor of a shipwreck. And this is where he has wound up on this island all alone. All right, pretty cool. But again, point of view, we are pulling back pretty far. He is more or less eye level with us, okay? But, you know, you could argue that he's sitting a little bit lower in the frame. And we really do get a sense of the enormity of the space around him, of his environment, and how there's really nowhere else to go. And he's just this little figure in this landscape. And you do get that sense of isolation. So very interesting. This is a simple, straightforward profile view of the figure, right? We're not doing anything crazy with our camera angle. We're not going way up in the sky and looking down or doing an ants-eye view kind of thing. And that wouldn't really help to tell this story any better than this simple solution. But what matters here are scale, right? Keep the figure small, placement of the figure in relationship to the environment, okay, around him, and making him feel like he's really isolated here. No other signs of life, okay? One other thing to mention, of course, and we're not going to get really heavy into this because that's a topic for another time, but I do want to point out that the figure is in shadow, more or less. We get a sense that, you know, it's not like there's a bright, hopeful sort of look about this. Everything looks a little kind of dim, and I think that's helping to tell that story as well. Alrighty, so Stony, you're from Texas. Cool. Got Lee from Virginia. Rosie from New Zealand. All right, a Kiwi. What's up? Christelle from France. Bonjour, Christelle. J'espère que tout va bien avec toi. Or vous, if I want to be polite. Pardon me. Excellent. All right, so looking for some questions here. Want to make sure. We got Lisette from the Netherlands. Cool, 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 cool. And Christoire from Ireland. Mayo, Ireland, neato. Sabina from Israel. Wow. Which software is more useful to learn, Photoshop or Illustrator? That is impossible to answer unless I know what it is you want to make, what you want to do. If you want to do painterly artwork, I'm talking specifically illustration here, you want to use brushes that have different qualities of natural media and so on. I would say Photoshop or Fresco. But if you're looking for vector art, flat graphic, shape building kind of art, then I would move over to Illustrator. Wade is in Mississippi. Cool, cool, cool. Danielle, I thought the subject was a she. No, this is a man with a beard. I think it's like a pirate of some kind. That's why it's got the big loose pants and everything. This looks like it could be an illustration from maybe like Treasure Island or some other pirate story. But what do I know? Brian from Denver. Cool, cool. Alrighty. So, this is our piece by Howard Pyle. Now, why don't we look at something different and compare and contrast? Okay. So, just pop this up here. Right away, we have a very different conversation here. Let's talk about us and the viewer and how we are drawn into this photograph. Okay, in this case, not an illustration, but could work as a painting, of course. How we're drawn into this and the difference between this and that, okay? And the main difference here is that by being placed directly behind the subject, we are treated to a view of what he is seeing, okay? And by doing this, we are more involved as viewers in the illustration, meaning we sort of feel like we are in it. We are participants in what's going on here. This is very different from what we see here. In this case, we could be observing it, actually standing there on the beach with this person, but it's unlikely. We do not get a feeling of being pulled in with this figure. Instead, we feel like we are outside of his experience. And this is being pulled off by there being no way to invite us into the picture because his gaze is downward, okay? And he's far enough away, and there are no other people or any subjects apart from this little flock of birds up here in the picture that lead us to believe that we somehow can be a part of this scene. It's a very different feeling in terms of our participation. Whereas here, because we can see what the viewer sees, he's got his head up, he's looking out, okay, and we get a sense of what it is that he is seeing. This is a very different feeling, isn't it? Now let's also take note of the fact that in this instance, the figure is very stable. Okay, we got our classic triangle shape here. And he's also larger, and his head pops up above the shoreline here, so he doesn't look so small and maybe so helpless. And we do see that he's alone, but we can very easily imagine, because of just the patterns in the sand, there's tons of footprints and whatnot. And also, I sort of get this feeling that he's smiling. I don't know how to describe it. But it's a happier image. The lighting is very different. In the sand there, it's brighter. Things look to be going just fine for this person. And it's a lot of this is having to do with this camera angle. Okay, so simply by taking the camera and shifting it around to behind the viewer, all right, lifting up the head and giving us a nice clear view of everything that he can see, we get a very different illustration altogether. But the subject is the same, okay? I say to you, illustrate a person sitting on a beach. Well, here are two different ways you could go that tell a very different story, have a very different mood, but use the same elements, the same ingredients to tell that story, okay? Let's see. Jackson, Missouri. Is that what MS is? Missouri, right? Oh gosh. Is that Mississippi? Sorry. I always mess up the initials for some of the states. My apologies. But yes, so there you go, right? There they are, looking out, ba-bum, ba-bum. Totally different feeling from the previous piece. One more gander there at that one. Head down, looking gloomy, much smaller in the frame, darker, right? Big sense of isolation with the way that the background elements are handled, almost as like big flat shapes, right? Pretty cool. The design of that piece is really great. Love it. All right, and then we have this to compare as well. Now let's take a look at another one. And this one is by Henry Scott Tuke, painter. Now, person sitting on the beach, but look here. Here we have one tiny little person poking their head out of the water. Instantly, of course, this is changing the dynamic because we know, and the gaze of this person towards this person, we know that this person is not alone. And so that's going to change things. But remember what I said about this illustration here. Sorry, not that one. I'll talk about that one later. This one here, this Howard Pyle piece. Remember what I said about not breaking up any of these design elements, these big shapes, okay? Leaving them simple, big, almost totally flat. What happens when we do that? So here we have the figure, okay, interrupting this nice background element here, okay? The ground. But we've taken it and we have added this complexity here with this shape, this asymmetrical balance here, okay? And what that does is it makes it feel a little smaller, okay? Because we've taken our figure and we put them in more of a cove now. See, they have this nice cozy area, okay, in which to hang out. Don't feel like there's this vastness to their surrounding area, okay? So they no longer have that sense of being really small and helpless and so on. Very, very similar, almost identical pose, okay? When you look at the anatomy here, the construction of the figure, the pose here, all right? Very similar, but the difference here is that we see, yes, he's got his head pointed down, not quite down all the way, but what's he looking at? Something here could be a stone, could be some other object, but we know that some object has captured this person's attention, okay? And so it's a different feeling. We don't feel like they're just hanging their head in sorrow and misery and hopelessness, but rather they're simply looking at something, okay, and studying it. That's very different. Note also the size of the figure. Okay, so by enlarging the figure and thus bringing us closer to the figure, we get more of a sense of the importance of the figure. The figure is more important because of his size in the composition overall. All right, not so far back anymore. Now we have what I would call medium to medium large figure here in the frame. In fact, if this person were to stand up, right, he would actually probably, yeah, he would definitely be out of frame. All right. And so then we can see, of course, that we get that sense of him, again, not being in danger of being lost in this large environment, lost and forgotten. Okay, and of course we're always helped along by this companion here, whoever this is, looking back towards this person, which of course compositionally is always going to help us to come back to our focal point. Is it not? And you may remember from the masterclass on composition a few months ago, some of the things we talked about. We talked about golden mean and various dynamic compositions using certain tricks where you subdivide up your rectangle and cool things like that. One of the simplest things we learned about was that rule of thirds, which some people love and some people hate, and some want to just destroy and forget altogether. But it is a handy thing. Don't forget, if you look at this piece right here, I'm sure that if I were to, there we go, let me get that a little closer to the thirds there. Boop, boop, boop. Yep, there he goes, falling right on that third, right? And I'm sure it goes this way too, more or less. There's our subject's head right there. No accident, folks. So we're close to that here as well. These are simple tricks, but they work. Anyway, person sitting on beach, same topic, totally different take, and we get a different story out of it altogether. Not to mention that, again, because of the way the lighting is painted here, and I know this is a low resolution image, but you're seeing all these nice reflections of the sun on the water. We know it's a nice sunny day. Everybody seems to be doing fine. We don't think that there's any sense of hopelessness or isolation here. Okay? And it's simple. Make the figure bigger, right? And break up the space around them so they don't feel like they're lost and insignificant, and you're good to go. Simple as that. Same pose of the figure. Totally different story. Here we have a painting by Frank Boucher. Now, in this case, what have we done differently? Well, the main thing you'll notice, okay, the pose is similar, but the main thing you'll notice is what? The size of the figure, which automatically makes her so much more important and also less helpless, less lost. She is filling the frame here. There, you know what I mean? Let's see, we got some comments here. Big sky and lone finger sets the mood in the Howard Pyle piece. Indeed. In the photo, the subject takes up more space than the subject in the drawing. Yes, you're closer to the person in the photo, far away from the guy in the drawing. Exactly. Hey, Motive Void, happy Friday to you as well. And Allison, thanks for joining us from New Orleans. You're going to go to the Black Crows. That's cool. Twice as hard as it was before. I used to listen to a lot of Black Crows. Allison, do you talk to angels? Okay. Thanks for the explanation. You're welcome, Zirkanane. I hope I'm saying your name right. All right, so anyway, look at the size of the figure here in this piece. Oh my gosh. Nice big triangle again. Love that stability of the triangle. Okay, balanced. And of course, let's go again with that super cheap trick. Oops. Of our placing, in this case, we're going to do this. We're going to put our figure up right here. So we've got a 3x12 grid going here. Could be a dynamic symmetry kind of situation, where we go for our right angles here and all that business. And then we connect. I know I'm doing this wrong, but I gotta get my right angle up this way. And you may remember these. Some of you may remember these from when we did the composition stuff. You can look that up on YouTube. It's all archived. You can find it all there. That should be centered, but close enough. Lots of stuff there that we can look at And you're going to find stuff lining up. Check out this line right here. There's her back. We come right down on the head, intersect with the foot. It all works out like magic. Anywho, enough of that. Let's talk about the mood of the piece. Yes, she looks contemplative, thinking about this big old crab here and what happened when they used to be friends, but now, things aren't so good. Crab's turning away from her. Looks a little upset. Maybe they had an argument. Maybe the crab has a new best friend, doesn't like chat with her so much. I'm just being silly. But honestly, we do have something for her to look at. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're directing our gaze here towards a certain subject in the painting. Let's take this nice big shape behind her and do what with it? Well, if we just leave it be, what happens? We wind up with things feeling a little bit too heavy over here on the left. So how do we fix that? Well, just throw in this nice little piece with a shipwreck and some rocks right there. Okay, and that also adds to the storytelling element. But we still have the same basic subject here, don't we? Person sitting on beach. They fill the entire frame. It's all about them. And then we add all of this detail and interest in every section of her figure, do we not? The way the clothing creates all these different little areas of interest, okay, and contrast, all these nice organic shapes, zero symmetry going on here. Everything is balanced, okay? It's so interesting to look at. All right, I love it. This is a great piece. Well done, Frank. And completely different mood, completely different storytelling. Not only is she the focal point, obviously, the subject, but the largest part of the painting. So different from this. We are miles away when it comes to comparing this painting to this painting. Do you not agree? Let me know what you think. Composition is a lot trickier now that key images have to fit all different types of banner sizes. Oh, you're telling me, Nixon. Can't stand it. I love cheap tricks too, Jason, because they work, so why not? Here's a good book Danielle recommends, The Art of Composition by Michelle Jacobs. Cool. Including stuff about dynamic symmetry. I love that stuff. All right, thanks for that recommendation. Let us now take a look at this. Completely different. Now we're starting to get creative with our camera angle. We're really starting to push it a little bit now. We are getting not only behind our subject, but above our subject. And what we are then given an opportunity to do is play with design, okay? And let me show you something here. I will isolate the shape here. All right, this is the shape of our figure. Let's hide it for a minute. Imagine I walked up to you on the street and showed you a picture of this. I just handed this to you and said, what do you see? I doubt very much that you would say, well, it's a person from top view wearing a hat. And these are the knees, elbow, elbow. It's so obvious. No. For all we know, you'd think it's some kind of, weird face, right? A little haircut like that. And maybe like wearing earrings that are huge. I don't know. But it's definitely not obvious what we're looking at. Okay, but sure makes for an interesting graphic shape in our composition. And because we are given other information, right, we can see that that's a human arm, etc. We know that's a hat and everything. Whenever the other pieces are introduced, besides simply just the silhouette, it makes sense and we know what we're looking at. All right, but this is something you can really play with your composition. When you get into these interesting angles, anti view, a view above, the subject, you know, low camera angle, high camera angle, etc. And then taking our piece overall here, and this line right here, right, is interrupted here by our silhouette. It's great too to have right here, just above center, almost a perfect circle, right? That's always very pleasing for the eye to see some kind of order or some kind of geometry that we recognize and that we like. Figure is mostly centered, okay, but you're gonna have a break right here, and then you're gonna have this cool action here with the shadow shape that is echoing what's happening, and also continuation of this line. If I just get rid of that for a moment, I want you to see this, okay? And what does that do? That pulls us up into the picture. Okay, so same topic, person sitting on beach. But now we're getting more creative and we're thinking more about the design of the piece. The storytelling element here, I mean, it's maybe not as strong. There's not much to say about this. Really, the hat is kind of getting in the way of doing that for us. We're not getting too much of a story. And besides, the writing is very distracting. So if you just ignore that for a moment, you know, I could take my clone stamp brush, hang on a minute, and just do this, you know, just stamp that all away. Get rid of that nonsense. Bye-bye. Also, I'm not a fan of this style of handwriting that has completely dominated what's supposed to pass for hand lettering these days. Sorry for being grumpy, but it really drives me nuts. Bye-bye. Okay. That's a little better. Not so distracting. And you can see, though, how you could start to play around with this being a more graphic and design. Okay, in fact, I see things like this and I think, wow, this could be fun for a poster. You know, you could just imagine taking out some space here, add a little block. Got some dates in here, and title of your event right here. And then here you have some filler info, you know, and maybe a logo here for a sponsor or whatever, and then some more filler info. And there you go, right? Now you're getting somewhere. Nice piece of graphic design. But think about that. What can you do with the camera angle? What can you do to change the personality of the illustration altogether and make it more about that? This is not so much about storytelling and giving us a sense of a real mood or some tension or anything like that. What this is about is shapes. And if you really enjoy working with shapes and with line and shape and the simple principles of design, the ingredients that go into a nice piece of graphic design, then this would be a way for you to handle this this kind of design problem and come up with a solution. If I say person sitting on the beach, you say, this is what I want to think about. I want to think about shape. I want to make an interesting composition. So this would be a way to change the camera angle and make it do that heavy lifting for you. Speaking of which, we are pulling way up now. We are not only above the figure, but we are very far above the figure. And so here you might see some similarities with the first painting, but there's something different about it. And that is that we know that this point of view is sort of a forced thing. It's not a natural way to see anything for a human. And so instantly, because we get this bird's eye view, there's something more creative and artistic and interesting about it, and also something a little bit more fantastical, okay? Because again, we are not typically seeing people from this angle, especially not in a beach situation. Now, if we were in a building looking down on people from a balcony or something, we're a little more familiar with that. But to see a person sitting like this is a little less common. And so it instantly just takes on a different sort of flavor, different personality for us. And there's also this person choosing to sit here in the surf. There is a feeling of that being a voluntary thing, and it's fun, it's pleasant, it's maybe vacation time. There's a shell there in his lap. This is a nice image that makes us think, this person is here by choice, everything's safe and fine, no danger. And even though the person is all alone, okay, I don't feel that same sense of isolation and loneliness and hopelessness and, you know, as I did with the Howard Pyle piece. And it might have something to do with the brighter colors, but also I just think the fact, like I mentioned, that we're sitting voluntarily here in the surf and having a nice time, it just gives me a different flavor altogether. Now, from a design point of view, I love all of this for one thing. I mean, look at this shape that goes right there, right to my subject. That worked out nicely. Lucky for the photographer. Maybe Photoshop was involved. I don't know, but that really worked out nicely. And then all this lovely activity here is just really wonderful texture and pattern to enjoy. And it's great that we get these really organic shapes breaking up our blue from our orangey brown here. Really, really wonderful. This is just a great photograph. But same topic, person sitting on the beach. We pull way up above them and we play with the environment surrounding them, okay, the ground, and make it about that, the patterns and the beauty that you can find in those two areas, right, surrounding the figure. And the figure feels very stable, very safe, but also, again, very small, but not small in the same way that makes us feel like they are lost and there's no hope and they're all alone. It's just a very different feeling to it. You're seeing Hogarth's line of beauty as well. I think that must have been from an earlier piece. Yes. Hey, Sherry, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you. Let me know what you think about these and which you think would be one that you would choose. Just what really stands out to you as something that speaks to you as a cool way to solve this. So we have one more to look at. We have one more. And remember, we could just keep going on with these. But this one is very different. So here's a person sitting on the beach. All right. Now I want you to, for a moment, just for a moment, ignore the drone. Don't worry about the drone. What I wanted to do with this piece was point out how different it is when you position the figure above the eye line of the viewer. Okay, so this is what's called oftentimes an ants eye view. Okay, we have a low camera angle here. What this almost always does is it gives your subject a sort of feeling of being powerful, strong, giving them sort of a more of a imposing presence. And it's very effective and very simple. You simply take the eye line down and you look up at the figure. And it gives them this strength that they otherwise would not have simply at eye level. And when you reverse that, okay, if you come slightly above them and have them look up at you from below your point of view, that oftentimes can give a good, the impression that this figure is maybe in danger, maybe they are weaker, smaller, etc. And that can be pretty handy for your storytelling as well, for whatever it is you're trying to do when you want to communicate something with your illustration, something specific. Now we see the drone, of course, so that's giving him something to look at, and that's fine. But that was not what I really wanted you to focus on for this piece. This is what I wanted you to see, how we feel smaller. We feel like this person has a sort of towering presence. And you can really exaggerate that. You know, if you were to take this image and do this, and that's the whole image. Just fill the frame with this figure, viewing from below, right? It really makes a difference. And you could also do this if the ground came all the way down to here. Okay, we place the figure even higher up and still use this angle, all right? They feel even more powerful. So again, same topic, different handling of the subject. Now, let's move on to a little exercise here. So I gave myself this little idea, a little drawing challenge that I'd love for all of you to try. And you don't have to pick the same subject as I do. You can pick anything you like. But I thought, person looking out of window. Person looking out a window. So here are the first two that I've drawn. Okay, and I'll just label these. All right, so here's number 1, and here's number 2. Now, for number 1, person looking out of window. We are below the subject, okay, looking up at them. And right away, because they're looking straight at us, we feel like we're part of the illustration. We are looking at them, and they are looking at us. Okay, so this draws you into the picture. You feel like you're a participant. We talked about that earlier. You're participating in this. This could be taken from a story where one character is speaking to another, and we choose to illustrate the point of view of the character who is being spoken to here. But using perspective to my advantage, okay, we're moving up and away here from the ground, right? Looking up towards this figure. And, you know, that's just an interesting angle. It's one way to handle it. But then I thought, okay, well, let's do this. Let's flatten things out. Let's move eye level so that I'm looking eye level with the person. And this takes you out of the picture. The person is not looking at you anymore, okay? We pull back a little ways, but what we do with our lighting is something is happening here, okay? We see bright something, some kind of brightness, and we move away towards shadow, right? And we have the person looking towards the brightness, and we have the figure lit in such a way that whatever that thing is illuminating the face here, right? So this side of the face, this side of the torso, okay, etc. And we have to then wonder, what is going on? What is he looking at? So then we're creating now we're starting to create a bit more of a story here. Something interesting is happening here. He is looking in that direction, okay? And we're adding some values here to help us tell more of that story. So that is another one. So I want to ask you, what could we do for these two? Person looking out of a window. I want you, if you can, in the chat, to give me some suggestions for camera angles, for points of view that I could try and illustrate that would tell a different story than what you see here. And feel free to add a couple of other elements if you want, but the goal is to try and keep it pretty simple. We have a subject, we have a window. The subject could be placed anywhere in the window looking out. But think about where you can place the camera. I'd like to know what you think, and let's see where we can go with this and take it a little further to give ourselves some more options and be creative with this. This is a good thing to challenge yourself with and, you know, force you to think through what it is you're trying to do when you choose to illustrate something and how to get to the place you want to be with the mood, with conveying a certain point of view for yourself as the artist that you want the viewer to take away when they look at it. So we have Danielle says from above, yes. Alan says top of house looking down at subject. Helicopter angle, I think that's about the same. Is that the same thing, Sean? Like sort of higher up? Diagonal looking down, says Bliss. Maybe from a balcony diagonally above. So we're having a lot of above shots here. Bird's eye view from top of building. Person behind, behind the person looking out the window, maybe at the rain. Ah, okay, Rosie, we're getting somewhere there. I like that. From inside the house, yes, now we're starting to think. Feet hanging out of the window, sense of height and fear, says Brian. Ooh, that's good. The sun shining down, yes. Looking down on someone looking down outwards. Maybe show the view of the person from inside the building. Yes, yes. I like this. This inside the room, I think, is interesting to me. Inside another apartment across the street. Yes. Okay, so let's try. First, we'll try inside. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. All right, so. So let's imagine this. Let's get the sill there. So maybe we have a person here looking out the window. And the suggestion was that perhaps it's raining. But yeah, you could throw some weather element in there. Okay, and then we have the opportunity here to design this interior space. You know, we can have a little carpet here or something. And little table or whatever. And then maybe even a doorway into another room or something like that. Maybe that's dark. Okay. Maybe everything in here is kind of dark. And this whole part of the drawing could be a little darker, right? And some of the light really is what comes from out here, and that helps to frame our person or whatever, silhouette of the person, right? You have some stuff on the table, but all the stuff here is just kind of, there's less contrast, you know, a little picture on the wall or something. Maybe that helps tell a story, right? Little details here and there. Some stuff here like a little plant or whatnot. But there's a completely different drawing, same subject, person looking out of window. All right. Looking at the character, close-up of the face looking out where the cheek is the focus of the character. I like that. Maybe a dog inside looking up behind him. Yeah, that's cool. Feels like time has passed. So much content to be. Yeah, right. So check this out. Let's hey, I had an idea. Because you said about close-up. Check this out. Let's do this. Close-up, close-up. Check this out. Let's go like this. Here is our window. Okay. And let's give it, there's our The window's open. What about this? What about if the person is, we just see part of them like that, and it's more sort of mysterious. It makes you wonder, hey, what's going on? Are they afraid of somebody? You know, makes you want to know what's going on with that story, right? What's going on there? Telling a different story here, a different story. Okay, so that's something to think about. Danielle, seeing another subject across the street in another apartment with a gun. Yeah, that's starting to get really spooky. Could do that. And let's see here. Let's throw another one down there. Let's do one quick one. So I liked that idea of someone in another apartment looking across the street. So, you know, we could see the window, somebody's looking out a window. Do this. Change that angle slightly there. So we know there's a figure over here. And then here we have the other figure. I'm not going to do a gun, I'm going to do a cup of coffee. There's enough violence in the world. There we go. So we have this person here. Maybe, you know, I got the hand here. Looking out the window. Across the street. This other person. And again, different story, different story. Right? So you see how this works. You could try this for yourself. Give yourself a simple topic. Illustrate it 3 or 4 different ways and see what you can do with it. And you can come up with some pretty nifty stuff. It's just a good way to get your creative juices flowing, get yourself to start considering the importance of the camera angle. We have 5 illustrations here of a person looking out of a window, but each one of them is completely distinct in its nature and the way that it's communicating something about what's happening with that topic, right? We have someone looking down here, most likely talking to or looking to someone that we are representing as the viewer. Here we have someone looking at something that could be happening off the distance. We don't know what it is, but it's exciting or different, or it's certainly grabbing this person's attention. Maybe the same thing here, but we're seeing from interior. So we could do a lot of storytelling here, talk about how is this place furnished, what's going on in here. This could tell us a lot about this subject right here. Here, what's going on? Mystery, drama, suspense. And here, there's some kind of interaction here, this person to that person. You know, we don't know what's going on, but we can make up some ideas and make that interesting as well. So quick exercise there. You get the idea. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's Illustration Masterclass with Adobe, and I'll be back after next week. Next week I'm not doing any classes, but the following week I'll be back with all my shows. You can tune in then. In the meantime, hope you all have a good weekend. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Please remember to be kind. And I will say, ciao for now.